The call came in just after 3. A frantic, breathless whisper on the line. A woman screaming words that made no sense. "He's eating her. He's eating my friend." In the small, quiet suburban neighborhood of Stamford, Connecticut, an afternoon of routine had been shattered. A pleasant home, a well-tended garden, a life lived in gentle comfort. All of it had become a hunting ground. Outside, the February air bit with a crisp cold. But inside, a different kind of chill had settled. It was the chill of pure, unadulterated terror. Something had broken. A line had been crossed, a trust shattered, and now the consequences were playing out in a symphony of screams and desperate pleas. A monster, draped in the clothes of a human child, was tearing a woman's face from her skull. What is a pet? A friend? A companion? A creature we bring into our homes, our lives, to share in our daily rhythms? We feed them, we clothe them, we give them names that feel like family. But what if the pet is not a cat, not a dog, but something else entirely? Something with an intelligence that mirrors our own, but a primal force that could never be tamed. A beast that can open doors, understand commands, and pour wine, but whose fangs and fury are always just beneath the surface. This is the story of Travis, a chimpanzee, a celebrity, a child, and a killer. It is a story about the lines we draw, the rules we break, and the horrifying price of playing God. It's a story that asks a simple question. When a wild animal looks at you, do you see a friend, or do you just see lunch? For Sandra Herold and her late husband Jerome, Travis wasn't a pet. He was their son. He came to them as a fragile infant, just 3 days old, a tiny, helpless creature plucked from the arms of his mother. They bought him for an astronomical sum, a down payment on a dream of a perfect family, a life where they could fill the void left by their own lost children. They raised him not in a cage, but in a home. He had his own room, his own toys. They bathed him, dressed him, and taught him how to eat with a fork and knife. He was a natural, a star. He learned to brush his teeth, to navigate the TV remote, and even to operate the family computer. He became a local celebrity, a neighborhood curiosity. People would stop and stare, fascinated by the sight of a chimpanzee driving his owner's truck to the ice cream shop, sitting in the passenger seat like a regular kid on a summer day. He was a fixture in their lives, a source of joy and fascination. But underneath the veneer of domesticity, something was always simmering, a wildness that could never be fully suppressed, a reminder of where he truly came from. The Herolds were a working-class couple who had built a life out of quiet routine. Jerome ran a towing business, a steady, no-frills profession that provided for them. Sandra was a doting wife and mother to their chosen son, Travis. Their world was small but full, centered entirely around their chimpanzee. They had lost a daughter to a tragic accident, a pain that never fully healed. Travis filled that void, a living, breathing testament to their desperate need for love and connection. They poured all their love, all their resources, all their grief into this creature. They taught him to ride a horse, to use a cup, to wear a shirt. They were so proud of him. He was a special, unique individual, they believed. Their neighbors were often bemused, sometimes concerned, but mostly they just marveled at the sheer spectacle of it all. Travis was not a chimp in their eyes, but a person, a member of the community, albeit a hairy one. This deep, almost pathological bond was what made the eventual tragedy so profound. It wasn't just an attack. It was a betrayal of a trust that had been built over 14 years. It was a shattering of an illusion they had carefully constructed for themselves. An illusion that said a wild animal could be tamed, that a primal heart could be made human. Travis was a male chimpanzee, a species that shares over 98% of its DNA with humans. But that 2% makes all the difference. He was massive, tipping the scales at over 200 pounds, a weight far heavier than a healthy chimp of his age. This was a consequence of his human-like diet, a life of rich foods and little natural exercise. Chimps possess a strength that is deceptive. They are, pound for pound, 5 to 8 times stronger than a human. Their muscles are denser, their bone structure more robust. Travis was a walking, breathing testament to this fact. His powerful arms and legs were capable of ripping apart a car tire, of tearing through flesh and bone as if it were tissue paper. His behavior, while often described as gentle and affectionate, carried the latent threat of his wild nature. He was known to have outbursts, moments of unpredictable aggression. The 2003 incident, where he escaped and chased a man, was a flashing red light, a clear and undeniable warning. But for Sandra Herold, the love was blind. The warnings were dismissed as isolated incidents, moments of childish mischief, not the terrifying preview of a coming storm. The authorities, in their wisdom, passed a new law, but a loophole, a small gesture of mercy, a technicality, allowed the Herolds to keep their son. A fatal kindness. The truth about chimpanzees is that they are not gentle giants. They are highly intelligent, social animals with complex hierarchies and a capacity for extreme violence. In the wild, they hunt, they kill, and they engage in brutal territorial disputes. Their teeth are not for chewing fruit. They are for tearing flesh. Their strength is not for climbing trees, it is for subduing rivals. These were the lessons the Herolds ignored. They saw the playful chimp who drank soda and watched baseball games. They didn't see the primal predator, whose instincts were simply lying dormant. Experts and primatologists had warned for years about the dangers of keeping large primates as pets. They spoke of the 5 o'clock chimpanzee phenomenon, the animal that, as it matures, becomes increasingly aggressive and unpredictable, especially around dusk. Travis, at 14, was in the throes of adolescence, a time when male chimps in the wild would be vying for dominance, asserting their power. His agitation on that fateful day was not an anomaly. It was the culmination of years of suppressed instincts, a powerful animal trapped in a human world. The subtle signs of a coming disaster were there for years. The Herolds were not just raising a pet, they were raising a ticking time bomb. Travis's behavior grew more erratic. The 2003 incident was just the beginning. The media reported on his antics, painting a picture of a lovable rogue. But behind the headlines, a different story was unfolding. Travis was becoming more possessive of Sandra, more territorial. He would get agitated when people approached her, his grunts and posturing growing more intense. A former animal control officer who had dealt with Travis warned Sandra about the dangers, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. The chimpanzee, in her mind, was family. How could family ever hurt her? The warnings were not just from authorities, they were from the very nature of the animal itself. The subtle shifts in his body language, the increasing frequency of his outbursts. But love is a powerful anesthetic. It numbs us to the truth, blinds us to the danger, and allows us to believe that this time will be different. This time he won't snap. This time the love will be enough. And it was this faith, this fatal belief that set the stage for the final act. Friends and family recounted incidents of Travis's disturbing behavior. He would snatch car keys, throw temper tantrums, and on one occasion, he even bit a man's finger. These were not the actions of a playful pet. They were the actions of a wild animal testing its boundaries, asserting its dominance. Yet Sandra saw them as minor transgressions. She would laugh off the incidents, calling him naughty or mischievous. She had built a fortress of denial around herself, a safe space where the truth couldn't touch her. The Herald's life with Travis was a delicate dance, a constant negotiation of power and control. They would appease him, reward him, and avoid any situation that might trigger his aggression. But this careful choreography couldn't last forever. The inherent conflict between his wild nature and his domesticated life was a pressure cooker. And on that cold February afternoon, the steam gauge finally exploded. The final warning, perhaps the most critical of all, was the chimp's own escalating agitation. He had been behaving strangely for weeks. He was jumpy, irritable, his usual playful demeanor replaced by a simmering tension. He was a storm building, and no one, not even the woman who loved him more than life itself, saw the darkness gathering on the horizon. February 16th, 2009. A cold day, but one that started like any other. Travis was restless, his movements were jerky, his breathing shallow. Sandra, seeing his agitation, made a decision that would haunt her forever. She gave him a Xanax-laced tea. It was a misguided attempt to calm the storm, a desperate act born of love and fear. The drug, instead of soothing him, seemed to ignite the fire. His eyes, usually so expressive, were now clouded with a feral rage. He saw Charla Nash, his owner's friend, and something inside him snapped. He saw not a familiar face, not a friend, but a threat. The assault was instant, brutal, and without mercy. Charla's screams were the only sound in the quiet neighborhood. Travis, with a strength that defied description, tore at her hands, ripping them from her wrists. He then turned his fury to her face. He used his powerful jaws, his sharp teeth, to disfigure her. He ripped off her nose, her lips, her eyelids. Her face, a roadmap of a life lived, became a bloody, unreadable ruin. Sandra, in a desperate, futile attempt to save her friend, ran for her shovel. She struck him again and again, the clang of metal against flesh echoing in the still air. She grabbed a butcher knife, plunging it into his back, the blade twisting in his muscle. But it was like trying to stop a freight train with a feather. He was impervious to the pain, a primal force of nature, driven by a rage that was beyond human comprehension. The blood, a crimson splatter on the pristine white snow, told a story of a struggle lost before it even began. The account of Charla Nash's experience is a chilling testament to the savagery of the attack. She arrived at the house, a routine visit to help her friend. She was familiar with Travis, had even played with him before. But on this day, something was different. The moment she stepped out of her car, Travis charged. She didn't have time to react, to scream, to run. The assault was a blur of motion, a flurry of teeth and claws. The pain shot through her as her hands were ripped away, and the agony of her face being torn apart was blinding. She could hear Sandra screaming, the frantic thudding of the shovel, the pathetic sound of the knife hitting his fur and flesh. But nothing could stop him. Caught in the chaos, she was a total victim. Her only hope was to play dead, to lie still, to pray that he would stop. She could feel the blood, a warm, sticky river flowing over her face, soaking into her clothes. The sound of her own screams was a distant echo, a memory of a life that was already gone. This was not an animal, but a machine of destruction, and it was far more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. The moment, captured in the collective memory of the public, became a symbol of the immense danger that had been so cavalierly ignored for so long. The 911 call was a symphony of chaos. Sandra Herold's voice, a raw, primal shriek of terror, echoed through the police station. "He's eating her. He's eating my friend. Please, send help. Oh God, hurry." The dispatcher, calm and collected in the face of her panic, tried to get details. But Sandra was beyond reason, her mind clouded by the horror unfolding before her. The chilling, guttural screams of Travis could be heard in the background, a terrifying punctuation to her desperate pleas. Police officers were dispatched. They arrived at the scene, their patrol cars a stark contrast to the quiet suburban street. What they saw was a scene from a nightmare. Charla lies motionless in a pool of blood, while Travis looms over her. He was agitated, pacing, his eyes burning with an unholy light. As the officers approached, he saw them. He saw another threat. He moved toward their car, his intent clear. An officer with a calm born of training and a fear born of pure instinct made a split-second decision. He drew his weapon and fired. The first shot, a clean, sharp crack, echoed in the stillness. Travis stumbled but did not fall. He was a force of nature, a creature of immense will. The officer fired again, and again, and again. 4 shots in total. Travis, his movements slowing, his eyes dimming, finally collapsed, a lifeless heap on the ground. The threat was neutralized. The beast was dead. But the cost was immense. The police report, a cold clinical document, detailed the horror in stark, simple terms. Officer Frank Chiafari was the one who fired the fatal shots. He described the moment with a chilling clarity. The chimp, he said, had the look of a wild animal, of a beast on a mission. He had tried to get to the back of the patrol car to open the door and attack the officers inside. He was not a pet, he was a predator. The officer, in a moment of pure survival instinct, did what he had to do. He shot and killed the chimpanzee. The aftermath was a scene of controlled chaos. Paramedics rushed to Charla Nash, her body a grotesque tableau of injuries. Her face was a gruesome blend of scars and fractures. She was a miracle of survival. A woman who, against all odds, had clung to life with a tenacity that defied her injuries. The medics worked frantically, trying to stabilize her, to stop the bleeding, to keep her from slipping away. The fire department, a silent presence in the background, hosed down the bloody scene, washing away the evidence of the brutal attack. The neighbors, huddled behind their windows, watched in stunned silence, their peaceful afternoon shattered forever by the sound of gunshots and the wail of sirens. The world watched in horror. The story of Travis the Chimp and the brutal attack on Charla Nash became a national news sensation. The images of Charla, her face a mangled ruin, were too graphic to show, but the descriptions alone were enough to turn stomachs. The public was outraged. How could this have happened? How could a wild animal, a creature with such immense power, be allowed to live in a suburban home? The media descended on Stamford, their cameras and microphones a constant presence. The debate over exotic animal ownership raged in newsrooms and on television screens. Pundits and experts weighed in, their voices a cacophony of condemnation and disbelief. Charla's road to recovery was a long and arduous one. She underwent numerous surgeries, her body a canvas for the miracles of modern medicine. She received a full face transplant, a new chance at a normal life. But the hand transplants, a symbol of hope for a future of independence, were rejected by her body. Her life, forever altered, became a testament to her resilience. Sandra Herold, Travis's owner, was thrust into the spotlight. She was vilified, blamed for the tragedy. Her frantic 911 call became a cultural artifact, a terrifying audio diary of her desperation. She never recovered from the trauma. Her brother, in a quiet, heartbreaking interview, revealed that he believed the stress of the attack and the subsequent media circus led to her death from an aortic aneurysm the following year. It was a tragic end for a woman who loved an animal with a devotion that proved to be her ultimate undoing. The legal and political fallout was immense. The attack became a catalyst for change. The Captive Primate Safety Act was proposed in Congress, a bill that would have banned the interstate sale and transportation of primates for the pet trade. While the bill didn't pass, it reignited the debate and brought the issue to the forefront of national consciousness. Charla Nash, in her quiet, dignified way, became the face of the movement. She appeared on talk shows, her face veiled, her voice a soft, haunting testament to her pain. She spoke not of bitterness, but of the need for change, for a law that would prevent a tragedy like hers from ever happening again. Her lawsuit against the Herold estate was a legal battle that lasted for years, a fight for justice and compensation for the unspeakable suffering she had endured. The public was divided. Some saw Sandra Herold as a victim of her own misguided love. Others saw her as a reckless and irresponsible pet owner who deserved to be held accountable. The story became a Rorschach test, a reflection of people's deepest beliefs about animal rights, personal responsibility, and the boundaries between man and nature. The auras of tragedy, of sorrow, and of unanswered questions hung over the entire community. It was a wound that would never fully heal, a permanent scar on the memory of a quiet town. The story of Travis and Charla is more than a tale of a savage animal attack. It is a modern-day fable, a cautionary tale about the hubris of man. We think we can control nature, that we can domesticate the wild, that love and affection can bridge the gap between two different species. But the wild, in its essence, can never be truly tamed. It can be contained, it can be managed, but its primal instincts will always lie in wait, ready to erupt. The lines we draw between ourselves and the animal kingdom are not just physical, but psychological. When we blur those lines, when we invite a force of nature into our homes, we are not just taking a pet. We are inviting a beautiful, unpredictable, and potentially deadly stranger to sit at our dinner table. And we do it at our own peril. The price for that intimacy can be paid in blood, in blindness, in the loss of a life that can never be fully restored. And the chilling last line, the one that lingers in the quiet halls of our collective memory, is not the scream of the victim, but the silent, brutal reality that a man with a gun had to shoot a pet to save a human life.